Today's panel, I was very excited about, is looking beyond kind of traditional roles in the design industry, and each of the panelists that we have here today have very interesting lives, very interesting trajectories that are not very linear. A lot of times people will say, at 4, I wanted to build with Legos. I became an architect and that's it. Or at 5, I was painting walls and I became an interior designer, etc. Or, somebody who was, helping their parents with gardening and that kind of thing. And it's not always, life is not always like that. And so really what we wanted to do is get a little bit more personal, share a little bit more about their personal experiences, and then talk about how that applies to you and your journey as you finish school and then change from academic to professional life. So the first thing I'm going to do is let each of them introduce themselves and give you a really good rundown of what their experience has been, so you can get to know them a little bit more. I've got a few questions, but also we really would like this to be more of a conversation with you, and would like to hear any questions that you have for them. So as they're talking, if you've got specific questions you have for a specific person, anything pops up, just write them down, and we'll have question and answers at the end. So without further ado, Anki, I'll let you introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. So you're all fourth-year students?
And
Congratulations. And fifth. So you guys have been through the wars. Congratulations. You're the survivors. So that's just the way the rest of life is. But anyway, well done. I'm pleased to meet you. And I'm honored to be here. I am a residential architect. I have a firm in Washington, D.C. in its 36th year. Still love what I do, I'm pleased to say. And my journey is slightly different. You can hear I talk funny. I was born in Johannesburg, South Africa. I got my first architecture degree down there. And along the way, after I finished high school, I spent a year working in Europe, because when you're born at the bottom end of the world, you're always interested in the other parts of the world that seem more interesting. And I worked in a ski resort in Switzerland, and then I went to work in London. I bummed around for a bit, but I managed to work for an architect for about 9 months before I'd been to school. I knew a little technical drawing from shop class at high school, and earned £1 an hour, which even then was next to nothing. I guess that's about $1.12 today. It's really not much. But I had a fascinating time, as you might imagine. I worked in an awful architecture firm and took enough notes to make sure that wasn't what I was going to do myself later on. After architecture school, I decided that I really wanted to live somewhere that was not under the sort of oppressive apartheid regime, which was very much what I grew up under. So I set my sights on another country, decided to try and come to America, apply to architecture school as my bridge to try and get here. I was accepted, moved here. I was married. I brought my family, sold my car and everything. Came here in 81, graduated in 83, moved down to from New Haven, where I'd been at school, to Washington, D.C., where I stuck out a little less. I was much more of a foreigner with my accent and background. White South Africans were not popular at Yale at the time. And I've been settled in D.C. and loving it. Along the way, I also worked in Guatemala and Central America. In the 5th year of my architecture degree was a 6-year program, I think like your architecture program, 5 years in school and 1 year out in the field. And there'd been a huge earthquake there, and it was very interesting to me and fascinating to go. Pardon? You can't hear me? I'm sorry. Speak louder. I'm sorry. Anyway, Guatemala was fascinating, different culture. I spoke no Spanish, had never seen a burrito, not that they eat burritos there, but the whole culture was so different. It was fascinating to me, and I really enjoyed my time. I came to North America for the first time then, sort of set the seeds for my moving here. And then after 7 or 8 years of working for someone else in Washington, D.C., I started my own firm. I thought I would do commercial institutional work. Ended up doing residential work because that's what people were asking me to do, friends and so on, which led to a career, and I have to say I love it. I look forward to getting to know more of you better.
Hello, my name is Karen Rideau. I'm founder of Kitchen Design Group. I know many of you here, and it's so exciting to see you guys. I've been coming here for 4 years, and 4 years ago, you guys were in the freshman position. And it's really exciting to see where you guys are as you get to start your careers. So I hope these 4 years have been as beneficial as it has been for us to mentor you. I started at a junior college level, And I started in business because that's all I knew. I'm a first generation college graduate. And when I started in the business department, I saw that you could take electives. And I actually didn't have anything to do. I didn't like business at all. And I marched over across the campus to interior design and took a couple of interior design courses. And I said, wow, I really like this. And I took a photography class. And one of the instructors says, well, you can change your degree. And I said, people get a degree with this? And she said, of course. So I did change my degree. And when I finished the 2 years, I thought, okay, I'm done. I'm ready to go work. And just not really knowing the process of education, because I didn't come from a family that kind of showed me the way. I just really thought that was it and I was done. And as I met people along the way, they said, no, you need to go to university. And I just didn't even know where to begin. And you need a portfolio. And I was just like lost, but I took some time. I developed a portfolio that didn't look like any of the undergraduates from the program where I applied, but I did get accepted. And it took a while for me to believe that I even belonged there. But I did, and went on to go to architecture college. And when I was done, I had opened a magazine, like I was telling Karen this morning, and I saw a beautiful kitchen, and I said, I think this is what I want to try. It's kitchen design. Fast forward 33 years, and I'm still doing kitchen design and still have the same passion, just have a lot more knowledge. And so I just say to you today to stay on your path. It may not look like what you think it is, but you're going to meet people along the way that are going to guide and mentor you, and it never stops. And so I just invite you all to just be open and go along for the ride.
Hi, I'm Karen Lofton. Karen with a K, Karen with a C. I'm Karen Lofton. And my path is kind of like a curly Q. You know, it kind of went all over the place. So I went to school for fashion, graduated, thought I was going to take 7th Avenue by storm, worked a couple of months, hated it. And I thought, well, how could it be so bad? I love clothes. Why isn't this working? But really what I wanted to do was be around people. So I stayed there a couple of years, longer than I should have. I feel like I wasted some time, but you know, everything is a learning, right? So I took it with a grain of salt, took a job in retail. And worked in retail probably 10, 12 years, something around there. Was a long time ago. And had a baby and could no longer travel the way I was traveling, because I started as an assistant store manager and went all the way to a regional manager where I was responsible for 30 stores in probably 5 or 6 states. And had a baby and got a call from someone who said, you know, we're looking for a manager. Was near home, so I took that job. I was working at Ann Sachs at that time. Ann Sachs is a tile store, and they're owned by Kohler. So I learned about tile, and I learned more about toilets than I ever thought I would need to know. But I learned about them, and while I was at Ann Sachs, I went on a ski trip to Vail. And while we were in the restaurant waiting for our table, I was at the bar and talked to a guy. He said, what do you do? I said, you know, I sell tile. And that led to, I'm getting these stories all, that's not what happened. I said, I sell, right? That guy takes my card. He has a store on 5th Avenue in Manhattan, on Madison Avenue in Manhattan, male and female. I went to interview with him, but it was kind of stuffy and it really wasn't for me. And so I went to work for Ann Sachs, and then the current job that I have, that guy referred me to somebody, the guy at the bar. Somebody called me and said, you met a guy at a bar? And I said, I did. And he said, yeah. And he recommended you for the job. I said, okay, great. So I interviewed with Artistic Tile, took that job. And then my husband got transferred way down in South Jersey. And the commute was really horrible, although I loved the job that I had. The commute was bad. And so I stopped working. And my husband was a superintendent of schools. He reported to the mayor. The mayor's wife was a developer, and she developed affordable housing. And we were walking, talking, networking. We were neighbors. And she said, I need an HR director. And I said, what? I've been selling clothes and tile. I don't know what you're talking about. And she said, well, you've been hiring and firing and coaching and counseling, and that's HR. I said, okay, I'll try it. So I did that for almost 15 years. And my husband retired. We moved to North Carolina, and I decorated my house. And when I was done, there was nothing to do. And I thought, I'm not ready for retirement. I got some more life in me. And so my husband said, what job did you really love? And I said, I really loved my job at Artistic Tile. He said, call them. So I did. And a couple of days after I called them, they created this job for me. So in the end, it really ended up about managing people is what I do best, right? And so in all of those jobs, I was managing people, but it led me here. So I am what DLN calls a partner. So although I'm not an interior designer or a landscape designer or an architect, I'm really here to talk to you about other paths. So many of my salespeople, probably a large percentage, have interior design degrees. They are salespeople, and they represent our brand very well. They get an opportunity to use their design skills when someone comes in and says, I want a brand new bathroom. They get really excited because not only do they get to design the bathroom, they're going to make a lot of money selling tile at the same time. So if it's something you want to do and your skills are transferable, you can make it happen.
Hey everyone, my name is Tariq Maharan. I'm based in north of Dallas, Texas. I'm originally from Jordan. That's in the Middle East. That's overseas. As you noticed, I don't speak English. English is not my first language. I graduated from Mississippi State University, 2011. I'm alumni, proud to be alumni, proud to be a Bulldog. My career path started my interest with computer science. I didn't get like much interest, but with the family kind of background, my father is an architect, landscape architect. He had the first landscape architecture firm in the Middle East in 1987. So me and my family, we got really influenced with it. And there were discussions, why don't you try interior design? And I started studying interior design, and I got my first bachelor's degree in interior design, and I loved every minute of it. The school was phenomenal. The studios, nightmare, but it was great. Long night. As soon as I started in his office, it was a lot of fun doing a lot of residential homes, and it was just joy, especially when you see the final product, the clients are happy. But I had to start getting involved with other things like hotel, resorts, hospitals. I struggled. I didn't like some things because it was a lot of changes, and I did meet a lot of stakeholders, and I saw some intense meetings, and I'm like, they're not going to make up their mind, and I'm not feeling productive. And I got the advice from him, you got to keep a thick skin, you got to stay or make a choice and not do this, because that's how it is. Then I started looking, and I applied for a landscape design. I got a full scholarship to go to Catania University in Italy. That's where I got my first master's. I got my internship in Rome, went back home and did really good. And I wanted to do more, but I wanted to be better in the technical design, grading, planting design. And that's where I came to Mississippi State. I got my second master's degree, and I loved every minute of it here. And it was the best experience, 3 years in Starkville. You might be all like, you came all the way to Mississippi. I did apply to a couple of schools, Ball State, LSU, Texas A&M. This campus was my favorite. And we got influenced a lot by one professor, Sadiq Artunik, and his faculty here. They've been doing an amazing job. As soon as I graduated, went back home, told my family, this is amazing. And my brother was about to finish his architecture degree from Cairo University. I told him, you got to go to Mississippi. Really? Seriously? Sure. As soon as he went there, we convinced our third brother to go to Mississippi too, to get also a master's degree. So we're three brothers who got a master's degree in landscape architecture from the same school, same program. Now, my sister, I couldn't convince her, but she did come to Mississippi State. So we're 4 people who graduated from here. My daughter is coming, no matter what. Yeah, no choice. Seriously. If there is something, they wrote articles about me and my family in Jordan about how this university was so good to us. Went back home, practiced a bit, My father had to take a government position. I had to take over his business, about 120, 150 people. I was in my late 20s. I didn't want to take lead in the office like those experts. I'm a big fan of just working on projects. It doesn't matter the size, but I'm too fond with design, management, getting permits and all that. It's fun for me. I love it. 2014, I had to make a big choice. He was done with the government. He came back. He can run the office, and I took a one-way ticket, and I'm in Texas, focused on land development projects. I work with Core States Group as a land developer, project manager, working on mixed-use, commercial, retail, residential, mixed-use projects, and I love it. I love every minute of it. 4 years ago with networking, which I'm encouraging you all, create your LinkedIn page. That's the first thing. Someone asked me, you want to teach? I said, no, not interested. Why don't you just give it a shot? I'm like, you know what? Let me give it a shot. And I've been teaching at the University of Texas at Arlington for 4 years, just part-time, teaching computer applications, introduction, 3D modeling, rendering. And it's fun. And the best part, seeing the student results, teaching it the practice way, and here I am. Second year doing this with the Design Foundation, the Design Leadership Foundation. It's phenomenal. I've repeated this multiple times. I've never seen something like this in 15 years. I've traveled. I've been blessed by traveling, seeing a lot of university, doing workshops in Greece, Italy, Turkey, Jordan, Egypt, but I've never seen like a foundation like this for you all. And as soon as we got the call, I was more than happy and honored to be part of it. So, yep, thank you.
I want to clap after I
Thank
hear
you.
talk.
So my first question really kind of hones in on the ethos of the DLF and the fact that we are here to support landscape architecture, interior design, and architecture students. And the organization very much values collaboration, amongst other people. And I wanted to see if y'all could talk a little bit about collaboratory experiences that you've had, or the power of collaboration, and advice you would have for the students right now, especially as y'all are in your final years, before you go out into your professional life, kind of how to look at collaboration as they start that journey.
Sure, I think it's a great question, Ruth. I would encourage all of you, if you don't see much of the landscape architecture students who understand are in another program, the architecture students, do what you can while you're still at school to spend some time with them. Go on an off-site visit together, go and see a garden, go and see a project under construction. Do whatever you can, because in the end, the networking amongst fellow professionals will be the way you're going to get probably half the work that you have. In the back of the office, Andrew Law, if you want to put Andrew is an interior designer in Washington, D.C., who's a great friend. Put your hand up, Andrew.
Hands up. There we go.
Andrew and I have become great friends, but we're collaborators. We actually met, I think, through this organization and through friends about the same time, maybe 15, 18 years ago. Andrew and I have done maybe 10 projects together, and I see many more in the future. And we refer each other for projects all of the time, as we do with builders, landscape architects, and so on. You never know who's going to be the person that gets the call from the client that ends up being asked to build a team. And in the end, if you can refer to people that you know well, both personally but also professionally, who you think are a good fit with the client, good fit with the project, in the end, the best projects include all of these design disciplines. And so certainly a lot of the work that I've been fortunate enough to have in my career has come from these cooperative sort of ventures. The other thing I'd say is none of us in design cannot be interested in the other field. I would love to be a landscape architect. I would love to be an interior designer. I design a lot of kitchens. I'd love to do one with you, Karen. And so let's do it. It would be great. So the project is always better when an expert in that field that you're also interested in joins the team and actually raises the standard of the design, raises the standard of the discussion, and inspires the client and inspires the rest of the team. I mean, I can design a garden. I can design interior design reasonably well, I would think, Andrew. It'll never be as good as if I was doing the kitchen with Karen, the interiors with Andrew. And so the work is only better, and it's more fun because you're all working together. Sometimes the client or the builder will be tough on one or other of you, and all of a sudden you've got friends who can help you out of a tight situation. So I actually think the cross-disciplinary thing is one of the great, great things of our profession. And the most important networking you'll do is amongst your friends, because one of you will move to another city, and then the other person wants to come and needs a job or needs a reference for one thing or another. So your networking really starts right here. cross fertilization.
I agree with everything Anki said, and I just invite you guys to just, especially getting out of, you're getting ready to graduate, and you might be going for the same jobs, but don't think of each other as like a competition. You guys, these are your future collaborators. I probably get 35% of my work from interior designers, from architects, from builders, contractors, and vice versa. And it's just, we live in a very specialized, when you're doing luxury design, it's very specialized, and it's much better if you can bring in the top of the top to elevate the overall project. And most clients are very, very open to it. So it's not a competitive thing, and it's just about being open and creating the best project that you can for your end user.
For my business, sometimes we have a design staff, but sometimes they're fresh out of ideas or fresh out of new ideas. And so over the years, we have collaborated with different interior designers or jewelry designers to help us develop tile. I see there were two young ladies that came to Artistic Tile during their time in New York, and I'm sure they got a chance to spin with Jill. And so what those interior designers brought to the table, one of them is a carpet designer, one of them is a fabric designer, and we turned their carpet designs and or fabric designs into tile. So that's another way to collaborate, and it was good for us because we got some fresh ideas, and good for them because we paid them a royalty on anything they sold. So again, that's another one of those collaborations that's different than what these guys do, but I think it just drives the point home that two people together or three people together can do more than maybe that one person could do.
And like what you both just talked about today, like an opportunity to work on and collaboration, going back to it, it's not just in practice, it's also in school. Keep a great relationship with you all. You never know where your life's going to end. You might be working for somebody, you're going to be either a supervisor or one of your colleagues, or you're going to be partners, or you have to give a call to one of your colleagues. We need you. We're hiring. In terms of the practice itself, when you work for a private developer and they give you a call, most of the time I get the call from the architect. Sometimes the developer, Tariq, I need an architect. I call immediately. Somebody I have great relationship, Kelly in Chicago. We never met in person. But the communication, the design thinking, the way how she asks questions. I'm not an architect. I need your help. And bring in the big guns. When I say the big guns, the experts, the team players, the people who you collaborated with, anything related to the project itself. And I'll take care of my part. But sometimes I reach out to her. Have you worked with somebody who has done some kind of a specific service for a project? Have you hired somebody for the photometric plan, the lighting plan? I need somebody who's good, who has done something in that state. So these relationships, you maintain it. And like I said, go back to the networking part, maintaining great relationship, hear the people, listen to their passion, and if they like it. And Anki's talking about Andrew and Karen, see the stories. I have to put this comment now. This is one of my favorite panels I've been in the past 10 years.
Fantastic.
I've been in conferences, but I like it. I'm a little bit.
You're a fantastic panel.
I'm this close to
I
sit
chose
down
all
at
of
the
you, so
chair and
yeah.
keep listening to this. So this is awesome.
Thank you. Well, along those lines, I was having a conversation with Anki earlier, and it was really interesting. We were talking about inspiration, and specifically, in the design world, it's so necessary. And so, wanted to ask along the same terms, because we talked a little bit about inspiration actually in all of your answers, but wanted to see if y'all could talk a little bit about that, both in terms of how to continue to be inspired, but then also any times that inspiration has led you maybe down a non-traditional route. I think Karen Rideau, you might have some anecdotes on that as well. So thank you if you want to kick us off with inspiration and any advice you have.
Sure. As a young architect, interested in everything that I saw, I drew and sketched almost everything I saw, and I still do it today. And that's one thing I think that I would encourage you all to do. If you when I go to an exhibition, I know they always carry a tiny little sketchbook about this big square, and try to sketch at least one my favorite painting, artwork, sculpture in any particular room. Because although you might take pictures in a gallery to try and remember what you've got, I don't know about you, I have 25,000 pictures on my phone. I certainly can't look at them all the time. But the sketches that I've done, I remember. So it needn't even be a finished sketch, and they're really mostly for myself to be able to remember and see. But I think travel is the greatest inspiration, I think, for many of us. If you can afford to travel, if you have the time and the money, go and do it, go and do it. It's just too exciting to go somewhere foreign. Every time you walk into a new country, a new city, you see things with new eyes. It's as if you peeled back a layer and you see things you've never seen before. And then again, with a sketchbook or with your phone, make a record of the things you see. I started keeping paper files as a young architect when I tore everything out of all the design magazines, and I have reams and reams of pictures of handrails and stairs and kitchens and light fixtures and outdoor furniture, indoor furniture, colors of houses, roof slopes, everything. And I do the same on my Instagram now. I mean, Instagram allows you to travel from the safety and comfort of your sofa, which is great. And so you can, can have endless files. And so I have files of all kinds of things, because what you want to be able to do is you're sitting in a meeting, you're sitting with a friend, or you're working on a project, sitting with a client. You want to be able to find one of those 23,000 pictures, whatever you have in your phone, that are actually relevant. So if you've got them organized in your phone or your iPad, whatever your, electrical tool is that helps you, I think it's really, really useful. So I have to say my biggest inspiration is travel and looking at the work of people I admire in the design world.
Yeah, inspiration is always going to be for all of us because we have the passion for the art and the craft. So as long as we have that, we're going to continue to be inspired. Don't get complacent with your work. We've all been in this industry for over 30 years, and I'm constantly continuing to be inspired. And as Enki said, travel is a big thing. You might not be able to do it now. I know at your age I wasn't. Although I do think I took right out of college, I took a year trip Europe on $1,000 for a month. I don't, that doesn't exist anymore. But however you can do it, and it doesn't even have to be Europe, but just to see how other cultures and people live, it's very inspiration. I also draw inspiration from Instagram. It's always great to see what my colleagues are doing, what my friends are doing, colleagues I don't know that I stalk, or friends, that I do know. I draw a lot of inspiration from the designers that I work with every day around the city. I see what they're doing. And through that inspiration, it's given me the confidence and courage to do a lot of the things that I've done. I've authored a book on kitchen design. I've started a pottery line with one of my very favorite potters in Guanajuato, Mexico. I've always loved his work, and he designed a special pattern for me. And it was through building confidence and seeing that other designers were collaborating in furniture. Mine wasn't in furniture, but it was in pottery. And it's all of these things that really start to define your own brand, which is important. And so be inspired, stay inspired. It tells your story.
So not being on the creative side, but I think it also applies. I've always been inspired by people that do it really well, whatever it is. I've worked for some phenomenal people. Nancy Epstein, who is the founder of Artistic Tile, started in her garage in Tenafly, New Jersey. And she was buying tile from other people. And she said, wait a minute, I can do this on my own. And so she grew a little business that was in her garage to a $10 million business now with stores in different states and things. And my prior job working for the developer, she was one of the few female developers in New Jersey. And she was driven and she was passionate about what she did. And I think I've been inspired in good ways and bad ways. You take, when you have opportunities to meet people and be with people and work in different areas, you take what's good and you take what's bad, but that's not what I want to do, and not the way I would ever run my business, or not the way I would ever talk to people. But this one, they handle people really well and they run a really big business. So just be inspired by everything you see. Don't discount anything. Take it all in.
So I mentioned this before. So in terms of inspiration, I have it in multiple ways. And in school, I remember I started getting influenced a lot and inspired by. It all started with the family, of course, but I don't know if anybody heard of an architect named Takasaki Masaharu. He's from Japan. Santiago Calatrava, Richard England from Malta. Just watching their work and their passion, and I loved it. So it influenced a lot. And through time, I've I've learned about the Euclidean geometry, the geometric forms and design, and I loved it. And through time and practice, all of these elements, and I've traveled. I've traveled a lot. Like Yankee said, traveling is unbelievable. If you can invest or figure out a group or something that can actually gives you an opportunity to travel to explore places. So I've been in the Hoover Dam like last year for the ever first time. When you see things on TV, is nothing compared to reality. Nothing. It's just the size, the scale, the effort, the history, the context. That's a lot. So any kind of a space, you just get an opportunity to visit. Come visit Dallas. Go to New York. Go to Chicago. Any kind of in Mississippi, 3 years, I visited Chicago, Portland, Seattle. The program did a phenomenal job getting insane like funds and just work it out. In terms of other inspiration, I didn't say this before, but I'm a big fan of Jonathan Nolan and Christopher Nolan. Anybody heard of them? Oppenheimer movie, The Dark Knight. Does anyone know what's their background? English literature. Not like anything. It's the attention to details. It's amazing. I started getting curious. Okay, it's none of my business. It's not my field, but these people, it's really good just to read about others in different fields. And I don't know, I'm a big fan of Interstellar, the art, the science fiction. You just look at around you. Keep a sketchbook always at all times. Ask for a business card. Ask for a website. Instagram. I don't have an Instagram account, but I think it's an excellent tool. LinkedIn, have it active. Always read the articles. Hear what's going on in the market or who's actually publishing something. I'm going to repeat something. Anki was doing a workshop during COVID. If I knew about it or any kind of a like sketching workshop, I would share it. So these things, like it's phenomenal. So inspiration comes from all over the place, and I've been inspired a lot by a lot of great people. So, yep. Thank you.
It's okay. We heard the cowbell ring, which means we have about like 18, 19 more minutes. So I want to ask first, before I ask another question, if any of y'all have any questions, because we want to go to your questions first. And we want to answer that. Is this anybody? Yeah. So the question, just for the video and everything, is for the designers on the panel, if they could talk about their first projects and what that experience was like.
I think very first, when I was in architecture school in second year, someone asked me to redesign their room, which was just a favor. It was actually a friend of my parents, but I did the measured drawings. I went and measured the bed. I'd never measured a bed before, so of course got interested in that. And in fact, by the end of the year, I was asked to design my first house, which was a real reach. It was a second year student, I think, which I ended up doing. I went and moved down there and built the kitchen cabinets and so on. But I think in the end, if you inspire confidence in your friends around you in any sort of environment in which you meet them, and you inspire confidence and you show the passion that you have in what you do, people, as soon as they start to believe in you, will actually reach to you and ask for help. And so I think that even at a very young level, if you just show your passion and your interest and your mojo, people will knock on the door and ask you.
I was laughing because I'm going to tell you a story. It may not inspire you, but when I first got out of school, I lived in Arizona, and I just said, I'm getting out of here and I'm going to California. And it was probably my first year in, and my car was a Datsun hatchback. I'm sure you guys don't even know what Datsuns are. They're now Nissan. But it was a hoopty, so I had put everything in that I owned in this car and drove out here. And I was trying to get my way into a luxury industry. and I would see other designers driving in these really nice cars. And I said, oh, well, I'm going for it. That's where I talk about confidence. You got to believe in yourself. And it was pouring rain, and it was in the Palisades, and it was up in the hills. And what I used to do with my little Datsun is I would drive it around the corner and park it around the corner and then walk up, so they wouldn't see the car I drove. Plus, I was young, so you couple those two things. And it was pouring rain on this Saturday, and so I had no choice but to drive it into his driveway because it was rolling hills, and I must have been nervous. And so it was pouring rain, and I locked my keys in the car, and I didn't even realize it. And then today, now, if you lock your keys, you just call and they click, click, and you can open it from anywhere. But anyway, so I walked in, did my little, let me tell you what you should do with your kitchen. And he was probably just like, whatever. And I was going out to get to my car, and I thought, oh my God, I locked my keys in the car. So I said, I'm sorry, but I locked my keys in the car. And he says, oh, no problem. Let's call AAA. Well, I didn't have AAA. So he brings me this mobile phone from his house. And I literally went through the whole process, and I said, okay, sure. And so I get on the phone, and this is just like the universe working for you. And I said, oh, I locked my keys in the car, and it's raining. And she says, well, do you have your AAA card? And I said, no, it's in the car with my purse. And he's standing right there, and I'm trying to sell him a kitchen. And she says, well, okay, let's start with your name. And I said, okay, my surname is Rideau, and I start spelling it Rideau. I had no idea where this was going to go. And she said, I don't see you on here, but are you by any chance related to Jimmy? And I said, oh, yes, he's my godfather. And she just carried on we're talking AAA. We got carried on to this conversation. And she says, I don't see your name in here, but I'm going to call Jimmy on Monday and demand he get you a AAA card. And in the meantime, I'm going to send somebody over there to unlock your car. I kid you not. I'll never forget it. And so sure enough, they came and opened the car. I didn't get the job, but I tried my best to do whatever I could.
I don't design anything.
I wanted to see this on Netflix now. This should be like an awesome story. I remember in school, the first project was a villa residence north of Rome for an Italian businessman, and it didn't move forward with it, but we loved it. In my master's, it was the presidency of Georgia. When I was in Rome, in Jordan, it was the Marriott Hotel. Sorry, it was the Intercontinental Hotel in Aqaba. And you always remember those first projects after you finish school. They just get stuck. But everything else I forgot. I don't know what else I did. But those were like, okay, I gotta do good. This is it. I gotta prove myself. I gotta be that person. And I remember the first one in interior design. I had to learn AutoCAD quickly. It was a nightmare. We had to read a book, 150 pages. It was ArchiCAD and AutoCAD, and I've been using it for almost 20 years now. So, yep.
So actually, it kind of goes along with another question that I had, which was kind of that, life never is linear the way you think it's going to be. And you have this idea that I'm just going to do step 1, 2, 3, 4 and be at, step 5, and then we'll be, and there's so many curveballs that are thrown at you. And so wanted to talk a little bit about, I think you've already talked somewhat about it, but, confidence in yourself, because I think that was something we hit on earlier in one of the other panels, and especially with working with clients, with whether it's critiques at your first role or it's critiques as you go down the line, because in design, correct me if I'm wrong, but it never ends. You're always going to have a lot of opinions that you're having to deal with, and, kind of maintaining confidence, and what advice you have for that.
Well, apparently Karen's got the confidence because Uncle Jimmy still doesn't know who the hell it was that died out on his AAA card. You did get the AAA card. He was your godfather. Oh, it was a true story. I see. I think it's been said by other panelists already. I think each one of you has a story. You guys are almost graduating. You've come through a lot to get where you are. So you've got a lot to believe in. Do believe in yourself. Not just your mother will admire you, other people will admire you for it too. I also think there's nothing wrong with being nervous, and there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. I actually think if someone that you're dealing with is suddenly vulnerable or nervous, your tendency generally is actually to want to help them over the finish line. So I think that even if you go in and you're feeling a little bit nervous very early on, you're interviewing or you're representing the firm that you're working for with a client and you're there alone, or you have to be the first person to speak, or you know more about the design than the senior designer at the table, don't worry about it. And if you falter a little bit, I think you're going to find people are on your side. Just believe in yourself. It's a big thing. When I came here talking funny the way I did from South Africa, it was a very unpopular country back then. People are all excited now, but it was not a good thing. In the early 80s, I was terribly worried about this sort of imposter syndrome. And every time I opened my mouth, I was afraid that someone would stand on me, but it worked out. So believe in yourself.
Yeah, I mean that was a fun story, but I've not always had the confidence, and I didn't that day. I just went that route instead of the other. But I like Anki's, like, just be honest. And business always throws, having a business, working with clients, there's always things that you're not prepared for, or someone doesn't really care for the design. But as you get more seasoned, as you gain more knowledge that comes with confidence, you can still defend it and say, I understand if it's not for you, but I thought it was something different that we should look at before we go to what you think you want. And so there's ways to talk through it, but the line is not always straight. Like I told the earlier group, I did lose my business of over 30 years in the recent fires. And the first thought is to just say, okay, chapter closed, maybe I'm done. But the reality is I still have more to give. I still have more design talent. So you figure out a way to rebuild and keep moving, and then, being responsible for staff. And so it's really part of being a business owner. It's part of being in business. And no matter what's given to you, if this is what you're supposed to be doing, you keep doing it. And it's the passion for the art is what it comes down to.
Anki and Karen have covered most of it. But what I would say is whatever you go into it confidently. I mean, I've had jobs that 20 years ago, maybe even further back than that, I would have never imagined myself doing those things. But I've always been a person that says, never done that before, but I'm happy to try it. I'm that person. If they came in here today and told me that, the cook got sick and could I make some barbecue, I'd try it. You might not eat it, but I would try it. And I think that it's the willingness. If you're willing, you can find confidence in that willingness to take that step. And people find that very attractive. I think that, having interviewed people for a very, very long time, I'm always more interested in that person that's full of life and very happy to be there, happy to be in my presence, happy to interview for that job. And so just go into it really knowing and understanding, what you know. And it's okay to say when you don't know, it's okay, but you say it confidently. No, I've never done that before, but I'd love to try it. And that's what people, as a hiring manager, that's what people want to see.
When I moved from Jordan to Texas, I had the fear of failing. I did, even though 2 masters experience done. Now there's expectations, and I got to know how things are done. And with a couple of interviews, when I felt comfortable with one company, and I was truthful in the interview. Look, I've never done this. I would appreciate some learning. I have the educational background, but most of my practice are overseas, and it doesn't apply. Changing things from metric to imperial, so feet, inches, centimeters, meters. It was difficult. But through Mississippi State, it was all feet and inches, and I had the basics. Started, make sure you shadow somebody and a good mentor. And it doesn't have to be on a PM or a senior level. That should help a lot. So there is expectations from you, but you also have expectations from the firm or the institution you're going to work at. I've had designers who failed. They didn't go over the anxiety. I told them I might be not the good right person for you. So I bring another PM, they failed. And I tell them, you have to speak to somebody. In terms of stress, deadlines, you have to speak to somebody. They did overcome, because I had to tell them, like, we're not expecting a lot from you. You just started to learn. It's our job to get you there. In school, I have that experience too with some students. Some was getting D's and F's and C's. In the middle of the semester, I had to tell the student, okay, either I'm doing something wrong or something is going on. Until, what do I do till I can just jump and stop redesigning things? This is what you have to do. Put a kind of an exercise and stop and see where it goes. That young man now is a national award winner, a phenomenal person. In the end of the semester, I literally told him, you did things I've never done in school. You are now way much better than me while I was in school. I have high expectations from you. This is just literally communication and speaking up. So if you have that low, kind of, you're not sure of yourself, speak up, talk to somebody, get that positive people around you. Family plays a major role, and friends, also friends. I do believe in friends, because some, they might understand you and some they might not. So thank you.
We got time for one more question. Does anybody have another question? Of course, yes,
I
please.
just want to add one thing to it. Be confident, but don't be overconfident, and never lie. If someone asks you, have you done this, and you haven't, I think you say, I have not in my own experience done that, but here's what I think about that. Or I've seen a successful version of this that looks like that. And that's one of the things about having this inspiration and having 10,000 things in the back of your mind is, if you don't lie and you say, no, I haven't actually done that. However, I've seen this was very successful. Maybe you would like it. I think there's a way to get past that. Sometimes if you feel that you've been put on the spot by a client in a way like that, you can turn it around and ask them a question, to ask their opinion about that. It'll give you a chance to collect your thoughts that you can then come back with a reply that's confident or competent, at least, and keeps you in the conversation. But don't ever lie. Be confident without lying.
No, very much agree. Yes, one more thing.
On that same vein, as a person who hires people all the time, we joke about having your representative show up for the interview and then you show up for work. You want to make sure that what you represent in that interview is who you really are. So if you're dressed in a way that you wouldn't normally dress, or you got a face full of makeup and that's not the way you look all the time, really represent yourself, who you are. Don't pretend to be somebody that you're not, because eventually you're going to have to show up for work. And so you don't want to start pretending, because then you spend your whole time working, pretending, and it doesn't need to be that way.
Any other questions? Come on, guys. Y'all are not shy. We've known y'all for a while. You do have it all figured out. Well, I think actually my last question would just be, like, in parting, knowing that they are, either headed into a final year of architecture school in Jackson or headed straight out into the professional world in the next few months. What is your kind of, parting advice?
I have one that's fairly personal. I think there's a lot of talk in the design industry and in the press about trends. What's the latest thing? What's the newest thing? I actually think new is particularly relevant for fashion, for music, for art. But in interior design, and particularly in architecture, I think that the stuff is so expensive, takes a long time to build, needs to last a long time. So I actually think things that are exciting but have relevance over time, that actually are classic, not classical, but things that are classic, that have their value over time, is something. When you hear about an expensive fabric that's high quality, that you know is going to last, that's a good example of something that has got lasting value and something that people would admire. So I think stay away from being too worried or too entranced by trends. And the press keeps on looking for trends. The word trend is in every design publication you see all the time. Think about what you think will really last, that's really a thing of beauty, that's still a thing of beauty in 15 years' time, 20 years' time.
I agree. And just remember, might be at the top of your class right now, or you might be in the middle, or you might even be at the lower. Don't bring that into your workplace, because you would be surprised. You're probably all about the same place. And it doesn't matter how much internship you've had. When you go into a workplace, you still have so much to learn. And I think the best thing you can bring to the table is your enthusiasm. You're willing to work. You're willing to want to be there to help the whole team. That will go much further than any technical skills that you have.
I don't really have anything to add.
All I can think of, going back to just be truthful to yourself. That's all I can think of, because just in practice, all of us seen it. We've seen people who act differently with others, and you don't want to be that person. Just when you communicate with somebody, it's different with somebody else. I've seen that with some people, and I tried to stay away, because I can tell. I've had a young designer telling me, like, man, this person is talking with me differently. When they talk to you, I feel like they respect you more. I'm like, everybody needs to be respected equally. And if you get a small sign of something, hope you all get a good mentor. If he or she can take you to that place, learn from them, see how humble they are, no ego, vision, leadership. You look into those characters, you get lucky with those and take you there. So, yeah, thank you.